Hey, everybody, it's Dave here from Vikings First and SKOL. Next to me is my partner in crime. We've been doing this quite a while. Mr. Darren Campbell, another blogger from way back when the internet was new. That's right. Today, we're discussing on Two Old Bloggers three themes as usual. The first one is going to be a very, very interesting one. Are the Vikings falling behind in the NFC North? The NFC North looks to be getting more and more competitive. Do we like that? Do we think it's going to continue? We're going to have to find out. Second one, is Kwesi doing a good job? Hey, that's all related to the first one. Are we keeping up with the Joneses? Was he hamstrung in his first year? Has the second year improved? Will the third year be even better? We'll find out. And then we'll wrap it all up with our positional reviews. This week, the running backs. And boy, do we need some help there. Whether it be from Coach O'Connell or some running backs with talent. All coming next on Two Old Bloggers. Vikings First and SKOL presents This Week in Vikings Land with Darren and Dave, your two old bloggers. And I want to welcome everybody that's in the chat. There's a ton of you already, and I haven't posted up a single one. But we are grateful that you are here, from Mr. Bob Swede to K-Foot, KFT. We have Harmsy joining us. Good to see you, Harmsy. Raymond, Anthony, and who else am we missing? Chi-Town Vikings. Good to see you, my friend. We are about the same age and feel the same about this team. Then there's Chuck Litwin. Sorry, buddy. Welcome to the show. The doc is in the house as well. Aaron down here in chilly Austin. Not that it's real chilly compared to what it is above the Arctic Circle. To tell us about it, my partner right over here on the viewer's left, Darren Campbell. How are things up in the Great White North?
Oh, awesome, Dave. We're out of the deep freeze now, so life is pretty good. Just looking forward to watching football today, and thanks to everybody who's taking a break from the Baltimore-Houston game right now, or watching us and watching the Baltimore-Houston game at the same time. Don't care what you do as long as you tune in to us.
That's right. And multitasking is wonderful. We need to get this going with theme one. As I scroll down. Oh no, we suck again.
Oh, that's a harsh take, Dave. But I wanted to address the NFC North and the state of it right now, Dave, because with we got lots of comments already, some good ones for sure, lots of good ones. But for the NFC North got created, I think, in 2002. The first 21 years of the division, it's been that team from Wisconsin's division. Right. They were really the only one that the Vikings had to worry about most of the time. They had 12 divisional titles in those 21 years. The Vikings had the second most with 5, and then the Bears had 4. But really, I think it's fair to say that the Vikings were pretty much the second best team in the division during those first 21 years. We were in playoff contention a lot. Even if we didn't get to the playoffs all that much. The Bears, as you said, had those 4 divisional titles, but they didn't tend to be competitive other than those 4 years that they won the division. So that team from Wisconsin used to be the standard bearer, but things are looking a little bit different now, Dave, and it's getting to the point where for the Vikings, that team from Wisconsin is not the only team that we have to worry about. if you look at how things have gone the past year. And actually, the NFC North is looking like a very deep division right now, where the Vikings might be the weakest of the four right now, which is not a great place to be, and not a great feeling for a fan like me. For taking a look at, let's look at the Lions, this year's divisional champion. And if you want to think about like how the NFC North is becoming more competitive, the past 3 years, we've had three different divisional champions. That team from Wisconsin in 2021, the Vikings in 2022, and then this year, the Detroit Lions got in there. And looking at the Lions, like, I think that you could see them coming on last year when they won, I think, 8 of their last 9 games. You weren't really sure if that was real or just them on a hot streak, but I think they were looking like they were getting strong, particularly when they beat that team from Wisconsin last year in Lambeau with Green Bay having the playoffs on the line, and they couldn't, and the Lions got it done and beat them and played a great road game. Well, this year they followed that up for sure, again, winning the division title. Dan Campbell, great last name. And he's, ankle biter, that's right. Yeah. Ankle, biting on ankles and kneecaps or whatever the hell it was he said a few years ago. He's going to get a lot of credit for the turnaround, but I think that the guy that really deserves the kudos for the way Detroit's set up right now is the general manager, Brad Holmes. He only he came on in 2021, and this guy, particularly at the draft, has been just killing it lately. If you look at it, that is what's led, I think, to what Detroit has become this past year, and makes them look like right now that they could be a problem beyond this year. 2021, he drafts Amon-Ra St. Brown, Penei Sewell. That was kind of a no-brainer, but hey, he picked him. And then he gets Aleem McNeil in that draft. 2022, drafts Aiden Hutchinson. Again, a bit of a no-brainer, but the guy at Hutchinson has been exactly what they needed and wanted, and he's played exactly the kind of role that he had to play. And they picked up some nice secondary guys along with that. Josh Pascal, who's a pretty nice little guy on their defensive line. Kirby Joseph, dirty as hell. but he's a solid guy in the safety. And then last year in the 2023 draft, Holmes absolutely crushed it by getting Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Brian Branch in their draft. And those 3 guys look like absolute studs. And so that, in the past 3 drafts, that's a ton of cornerstone players that Brad Holmes has drafted for that team. The Lions are young. Right now, they're pretty cheap. And Holmes is the guy that has been drafting those, and he's done a great job. And he's the one that also pulled the trigger on the Matt Stafford trade that was questioned at the time, but they got, how could you trade Stafford? Well, Stafford wanted out, but they got extra draft capital from him, and they got Jared Goff, we were snickering about it at the time, but it turned out Goff has become a real good fit in Detroit for that offense. Now he's got a great offensive line, got some great skill players, but Goff has been what they needed there, and he's on a pretty reasonable contract for now in Detroit. All those cornerstone players, Goff is only 29 this year. If they can keep in, and if he can keep playing at the level that he's played the past couple of years, Detroit, at least for the next 4 or 5 years, injuries could derail them. There could be some other things that could happen, but they're not going to be able to keep all of those young guys that they've drafted if they all become as good as they are right now. Some are going to leave for salary cap reasons, but Detroit looks really, really well set up for the next 4 or 5 years, and they're going to be a problem for the Vikings and everybody else in the NFC North division. I said it, I believe it, and it's too bad. Drew I did mention
he was Gibbs in the notes.
Yeah, I did mention him as in the 2023, and he's been an excellent pickup for them, unfortunately for us. Let's look at that team from Wisconsin now, Dave, a little bit. I think we do. I don't want to, but I think we have to. Going into week 8 of the 2023 season, things were going exactly according to plan for us, Dave. Rodgers was gone. Love was sucking. The defense was really struggling. And It looked like a lost season and maybe a lost few years for Green Bay. Well, we know what's happened since then. Love has gone apeshit, playing like out of his mind. The offensive line has come together at Green Bay. The defense is still an issue, but they have had games where they have been dominant. Even I don't think last week I would say they were dominant. Now they let up late in the game, but the game was over by then. But they have really, really come along, and again, they're looking. I think I think Matt LaFleur is a really good head coach, a really good offensive head coach, a great play caller, a great at play design. But I think their general manager, Brian Gutekunst, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but he again, through drafting and developing something Green Bay has done very well for a long, long time, he has, again, I think, set them up to be for success. They've really, and particularly they've really invested in the tight ends and wide receivers the past 2 years. Drafted Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs in 2022. Drafted Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, the tight ends, and then Jaden Reed and Dontavius Nix in last year's draft. Now, none of those guys are probably going to be putting up the kind of stats that Justin Jefferson does or TJ Hawkinson does, but there's a lot of quality depth there. And you've seen it over the past few weeks as Love has gotten better. Those guys have all been contributing and been a problem for teams. I'm not ready to, as Denny Green would say, crown Jordan Love's ass right now. Maybe he's just going through a hot streak. He looks really good, but he also looked really bad earlier in the season. I want to see what he can do in 2024. But if he continues to play like he's playing now, that is very unfortunate for Viking fans, for everybody else in the NFC North. That the thought that Green Bay could have 3 excellent quarterbacks over 30, 40 years. Yeah.
Is disgusting.
It's disgusting, mind-boggling, but you'd have to give them credit if they could do that. I'm just hoping it doesn't happen, but hope is not a plan. But that offense, if Love can keep on playing like he's playing, then it can continue that standard. Even if the defense isn't always strong, they're going to have a shot. They're going to be a problem for teams in the NFC North. Finally, let's turn to the Chicago Bears. David.
Yes.
If you haven't been following the NFC North closely, or you're not a big Bears fan, you'd probably be like thinking that the Bears were just the Bears this year. 7-10 record. What's to write home about that? But when you consider where they were at the start of the year, where they got pasted the first 3 games, they ended up winning 4 of their last 6 games. They beat the Lions, which the Vikings could not do. And you look at their defense was a lot better in the second half of the season. That secondary in particular is young. If they can re-sign Jalen Johnson, I think they will. It's young and it's very good. Ryan Poles made a nice midseason trade to get Montez Sweat. It cost him, but Sweat really gave the Bears some more pass rushing juice, which we saw in the game in Minnesota, where he terrorized Ryan O'Neal. The 7-10 record, they seem that they're on the upswing too. Now Poles has got a huge decision coming up in the draft. They hold 2 picks in the top 10, and they hold the number 1 overall pick. Poles has got to decide, is he going to stick with Justin Fields and then make a trade like they did last year with Carolina and really add extra draft capital just this year and next year, and they could also add a quality veteran or 2 like they did getting DJ Moore that really helps them? Or is he going to decide to stay put at number 1, draft, let's say, Caleb Williams or Drake May, and then trade Justin Fields for extra draft capital? Not going to be as big a haul as he's going to get for the number 1 pick, but they'll get some extra stuff. Either way, I think Poles and the Bears are in a real enviable position right now with the draft, and Poles could get it wrong, and I hope he does. Yeah, but if he gets it right, or even half right, again, the Bears are going to get a lot of infusion of talent, young talent, cheap talent that is going to help them improve their team and keep them on that upward trajectory that we saw this in the past second half. So all of those three teams, that team from Wisconsin, the Lions, and the Bears, in 2023, showed that they're improving. They seem to be getting better. They're getting younger. You juxtapose that with the Vikings, Dave, and we did not, the way the things, injuries were a big part of it, but the way the season went, and with all the questions about big questions at quarterback, what are you going to do with Daniil Hunter? And can we improve as drafters? That, the future doesn't look quite as rosy for the Vikings as it seems for the other three teams. And we do appear to be falling behind. And this is going to be a huge, huge offseason for the Vikings, as it is for every team, but I think really huge for us to keep up with the Joneses and actually get to and make the right moves so that not only are we keeping up with them, but we're getting past them. So huge, huge offseason, a lot of questions for the Vikings. I don't know if they've got the right answers, but that's going to lead into theme number 2.
Well, now out of all 4 teams, cap-wise, the best ones sitting are, who is it? Chicago and Detroit. We're in there, I think, at 3rd and getting better. They're making an effort to do that, and we should be better, even better next year. But Green Bay's going to run up to it. They have a effective space of like -3 million. They're going to have to do some playing in this offseason just to maintain the level they are without anything spectacular happening. So hopefully they screw all that up and screw themselves. So, because they are Green Bay, and that's what we want. But
yes,
like you said, hope is not a plan. Well, that brings us, like you said, to theme 2. This is the biggie. Is Kwesi the right guy?
It is a big question, and I want to thank everybody again for the comments down there. I'm not doing a very good job acknowledging them. I don't think.
Oh, they're flying in. They are flying in, and I love it. And I didn't mean to miss you, Drew. Of course not. I missed a lot of people. I try to keep up with posts and graphics and the chat. It's busy, which is cool. I like it. When you guys are here.
And not that you don't do it, but chat with yourselves. Respond to the people that are responding to you, or you got a response to what somebody else posted on there. Do it. That's a good conversation as well. But yes, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, our GM. It was. I did the math, Dave. It was 723 days ago that he was named our general manager. Almost 2 years we're a week out from 2 years, his 2-year anniversary being signed. And at that time, young, Ivy League educated, Wall Street dude, smart, had that analytics, using analytics to make football decisions. I was really, really stoked to see that when he got hired, and stoked to see where he could take the Vikings, what kind of new direction, new views, new ways of doing things that he would employ to make the Vikings the kind of team that we want them to be, which is competing for a Super Bowl, winning the division regularly, making the playoffs, annually, and competing for the Super Bowl annually. And so with it almost at the 2-year anniversary, I feel it's a good time to kind of just take a look at Kwesi in those 2 years and kind of make some assessments on how do we think that he's doing for the doing at the job. And so I think that when assessing that, you got to look at some context and what he was left with when Rick Spielman was fired. And the first thing is that he was left with a shitty salary cap situation, one that was going to impact the Vikings, at least short term. They had a team that had some bloated contracts and not a lot of cap space. And yet he was given the mandate from the Wilfs that we're not tearing this down to the studs, Kwesi. You've got to take what you've got here and make us competitive every season, and while trying to get us to the Super Bowl. We're not going to put it down take it down to the studs, and then build up and try to get to the Super Bowl. You got to keep us competitive, and then get us to the Super Bowl. And you've got to do that with a salary cap situation that is not the envy of the league. Well, that's pretty tough to do.
On top of that, you got to keep everybody and run it back so we can determine whether it was the coaches and Spielman's problem or if it was something else. And so he couldn't disgorge a bunch of people in that first year. He had to keep all these high-priced vets and go from there. Now, that first year, we were pretty lucky when it came to a record, 13-4. All those one-score games.
Mm-hmm. And I think on the salary cap situation, Dave, that Kwesi has done a really good job. Right now, over the cap has us at with a, I think, 26.3 mil of salary cap space. A lot that's going to happen in between now and March. Extensions, guys that are going to get take salary cuts to stay on the team, or pushing money into the future, or whatever they're going to do. But Kwesi has been, in the previous 2 years, he's always been able, even with a crappy salary cap situation, he's been able to do enough work to get the Vikings to have a salary cap where they could at least be some active in free agency, more so in 2022 than 2023. But we were able to do things and address some needs through free agency, and we just didn't sit there. I think I also like that what he's taken, the approach he's taken with the free agency deals. Now, maybe that's partly because of the salary cap situation, but he's been very careful, I think, to that the free agent deals have been minimal years, reasonable salary, salary cap hits with those years, and they haven't hamstring the Viking salary cap long term. And I like that. So I think salary cap wise and the way he's structured free agent deals, I think he's done a very good job that way and got us out of salary cap situation. And it's improving year into year, wherein I think by 2025, the Vikings could have a boatload of free agency, of free agent cap or salary cap to do whatever they want to do, whether it's extend guys that they want, that their own guys that they really want, or to go after a few odd free agents that they feel can really make a big impact. So that's the financial side of the thing. I think he's done very well. The roster building, player procurement is another matter. Let's get to those. I think the free agency type stuff and what he's done. I think that's, as it often is, it's been a mixed bag. I think probably his best free agent signing was Zadarius Smith, but he was only able to keep him for a year. And I think Harrison Phillips has been a solid selection in his 2 years. Played better this year, a lot better this year than last. Jordan Hicks, that one had worked out, but it's been a kind of a 50-50 deal. Hicks wasn't very good in 2022, but he was excellent this year. Some of the other free agent signings haven't worked out as well. Marcus Davenport, huge bust.
Are you telling me Marcus Davenport was a big fat zero?
Not a complete zero, but pretty close. He did have a good game and a half, which is about all he played. Byron Murphy Jr. really struggled this year. I don't know whether that's because he was playing in a defense that was playing tons and tons of zone, and he's more of a strong and press man, or what. But he didn't have a really good year. Some of the other guys, Dean Lowry, people like that, the Chandon Sullivans, they have not worked out very well. So the free agency been a mixed bag. Some hits, some big misses. On the trading side of things, the two big trades that he's made, I think, have been again a mixed bag. TJ Hawkinson deal, excellent move by Kwesi, even if you take into account the knee injury late in the season, unfortunate as it is, that could keep him out a fair bit in 2024. But even with that's just bad luck. Kwesi can't do anything about that. But what TJ Hawkinson has done while he's been in Minnesota has been fantastic, exactly what we needed from the tight end position, and that was a great trade. Now the trade to trade down in the draft with Detroit and end up at 32, and you pick up Lewis Seen and a few other extra draft picks, that has been a huge bust. So again, Kwesi hit on one, and so far a big miss on one. That takes us to the draft. 2022 draft, looking like a huge bust. 10 players picked right there. Out of those 10, the only 2 that are playing very much are Ed Ingram, and Caleb Evans. Now, Ingram looks like he's got a chance to be a solid right guard for the Vikings, and there's nothing wrong with that. As a second-round pick, that would be a nice outcome. But Caleb Evans was the weakest player on the Vikings defense last year, in my opinion. He was benched a couple of times in the last couple of games, and I think that he needs to be a backup next year for the Vikings defense to continue to improve. So when you look at those 2 guys, everybody else in that draft is either not on the team anymore or barely contributing. So 2022 draft, colossal bust. It's looking like draft for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, not really a feather in his cap. The 2023 draft has been looking a lot better. Of course, Jordan Addison is a keeper. Got some things to work on, and we'll get to that when we get to wide receivers in a few weeks, but he's a keeper. The guy in the picture here, Mekhi Blackmon, had a nice rookie year. He was actually the highest graded Vikings defensive player according to PFF, and what I saw from him was a guy that active, pretty good tackler for his size, makes plays on the ball, tough, undersized, and that's always going to hurt him. But I think that he's got a future as a starter with the Vikings, and he's going to be a solid player for us. And then, of course, they get Ivan Pace Jr., got an absolute steal getting him as an undrafted rookie free agent, another guy that I think is going to be a part of the Vikings defense for quite a while. So that's great. Those are 3 really nice additions from your 2023 draft class and undrafted rookie free agent class. Now, the other 4 guys from that draft class, again, it was a small draft class, Dave. So, and the Vikings didn't have a lot of picks in the top 100, so a smaller margin for error for that draft class. But those other 4 guys, Jaron Hall, Jake Roy, Jay Ward, Dwayne McBride, will they make an impact on the Vikings? I've got hopes for particularly Jay Ward and Jake Roy, but we'll see on that. So a lot of things going on right now for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. I'd say, after 2 years, I'd probably give him a B as far as the job he has done. But I think 2024, this offseason, he's got to absolutely crush it, Dave. The draft, free agency, a lot of big decisions. What are you going to do with Kirk Cousins? You've got the number 11 draft pick, the highest we've had since 2015. Do you take a swing and trade draft capital to move up, or do you stay pat, or do you move back, trade back, and add extra draft capital that you need to, help out with those needs that the Vikings have? What are you going to do with Danielle Hunter? You've got to resolve the Justin Jefferson contract extension situation so that before that gets messy as the season moves on. So a whole bunch of big stuff that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has got to get right in 2024. And if he gets it right, he could have a long tenure here as general manager with the Vikings. If he doesn't get it right, particularly at quarterback, he might be looking for another job in 2026.
Yep, and I don't disagree with you on that. I think he's got a better chance at it. That first draft, as people have annotated in the chat, it was Rick Spielman's scouting department that was in there with him. Plus, on the defensive side, you had Donachelle, who was hired prior to O'Connell, and he was influencing the defensive picks. And obviously, most of those turned out to be. And whether it be the trade to go down to Scene, and Scene was the guy they wanted, or Asamoah, who may turn into somebody, may not, who was supposedly dealing with a nagging ankle injury. I heard it was ankle, that he had surgery on. It confirmed, we get the notice last week that, hey, surgery went well. And we all went, surgery for what? And
yes.
All that sort of stuff, it's now his, completely his. Last year was his, this year's his, and they're going to trust Brian Flores now knows what he is looking for and wants. He obviously influenced last year's draft. He's going to do it again this year, quite grandly. How they prioritize, are they going to move up and get a quarterback? Are they going to stick defense first? But either way they go on that, there's going to be a ton of defensive focus when it comes to the draft and free agency this year. And that's going to be influenced by Brian Flores. So it should be interesting to see how this year works out. Now, if we see steady improvement, we know he was handcuffed. Kwesi was handcuffed in that very first year. If we see steady improvement between we had the first year and then the second year we got improved, and now this being the third year and it's still everything's going up, he's going to be here a while. And hopefully that fills. Every GM's going to miss on a player or two in the draft. And you got to remember draft positions, what you expect of a player. I saw, well, Hall isn't that good. Hall's a 5th-round draft pick. He isn't expected to be that good. He's expected to be, basically, if he wasn't a quarterback, to be a special teamer. It takes time for some of these people to develop, and a 5th-round quarterback you're hoping becomes a backup. That's the maximum you hope for. And the 5th round is the worst spot to pick a quarterback. So it's historically that is. It's interesting to see if we're going to see improvement this year. And I hope we do. But we're going to find out because it's a very, very interesting draft and an interesting point in Vikings history with a present quarterback that's going to be a free agent and everything else that's going on, how they are going to go. So it's going to be it. Is this regime 4 years and done? We'll find out.
I still have faith in Kwesi, and I still believe that he's the guy that can get the job done. But that is because I liked his background. I like what he what he stood for. I like the things that he said coming into the when he was hired. But yeah, not every decision he's made has turned out well. He has not all of a lot of his draft picks have not turned out well so far that it's looking at. So the questions arise. But big off season for him. And but if the Vikings, if Kevin O'Connell get the quarterback decision right, they will be sticking around for a while.
Yes, and that's the biggie right there. Find your quarterback and do it right. As I was joking with, or not joking, but saying with some of the guys, I think Tyler, if they re-sign Kirk to 2 years, Kirk could possibly put extra notches on his belt for an extra set of GM and head coaches by the time it's done. But we'll find out. All right, on to theme 3. Position review of the running backs, or lack thereof.
Last week we did the quarterbacks. This week we're doing the running backs, and running back situation. The Vikings have several holes on their team that they need to address, but and need to get better at and improve at in order for the team to improve on the 7-10 record that they had in 2023. But certainly running back has turned out to be one of the biggest positions that they need to improve in, they need to address somehow. And Kevin O'Connell's really got to focus on improving the running game because it hamstrung the offense all year, that along with the quarterback carousel that we had. But the running game was problem number 2. And last season, the Vikings finished 29th in rushing yards in the league, which is terrible. And one of the reasons that happened, not the only reason, but one of the reasons that happened is that Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, who went along with it, made the wrong decision in deciding that Alexander Mattison was going to be the guy to take over as the number one running back when they decided to release Dalvin Cook. I do not have any qualms with them releasing Dalvin Cook. I think as we saw this year with how he played against the Jets, the Vikings made absolutely the correct decision in letting go of Dalvin Cook when they did and cutting bait there. But they didn't make the right decision, and it was pretty obvious early in keeping Alexander Mattison. Matty just wasn't fast enough, not explosive enough, not elusive enough to be your bell cow running back for the Vikings, particularly with some of the blocking that we see the offensive line pull off from time to time. And late in the year, even though Kevin O'Connell did not publicly announce it, he lost his job. He hurt his ankle, but then he lost his job at the end of the year. And he didn't seem to really like that. I was listening to Doogie Wilson on SKOL North last week, and he talked about how at the end of the Lions game, he approached Mattison for an interview, and Mattison just said, no, I don't want to do it, turned him down. That kind of signaled to me that Madison's not really content with his current position on the Vikings. And it was a bit surprising because he's always been, I think, a pretty good guy and not a guy to really be standoffish with the media. So I thought that was, I'm wondering about what his mental attitude is going into this season. I know a lot of people want him cut, but the reality is that the Vikings, even if they cut him, they almost gain no salary cap relief at all. He's got a $4.6 million salary cap hit, and the Vikings will be eating $4 million of that no matter when they cut him, if they were to do that. And so that's why I don't think they're going to cut him. And with the way the level of attrition at the running back position in the NFL, there's probably a case to be made for keeping a guy like Mattison, even if he's going to be your backup or your third guy, even if he isn't happy about it. So I see Mattison being back next year largely because at times he's shown that he can be effective when he's plugged in to replace their starter from time to time. And also he doesn't cost very much. And also if you cut him, you're going to be paying him. He's going to be the salary cap hit's going to be the same, and you're not going to gain much salary cap relief anyway. So I don't think his role is going to be, I think his role is going to be minimal, but he'll be back. And if you don't like that as Viking fans, take it up with O'Connell and the general manager. But now the guy who I think will be starting it, based on who we have on the roster right now and under contract, is going to be Ty Chandler, who is the exact opposite of Mattison in that he is very fast, very explosive, and he's got more wiggle and make you miss ability than Matty does. And I do not a great pass blocker right now, and that reportedly is one of the reasons he didn't get on the field as a starter earlier in 2023. But so he's got to work on that. I do have some concerns with making Chandler your number one guy next year, because he doesn't have a track record as being a guy who can be successful at the NFL level and handle 250 carries a year or whatever it's going to be. But based on, again, the talent of all the guys that we have under contract right now, he is the most explosive and the best option. And that's why I think he's going to go into the offseason and training camp and start the regular season as our number one guy. The other guys under contract right now, Kenny Nwangwu, Myles Gaskin. I was surprised he's actually under contract for us still. And then there's Dwayne McBride. Kenny Nwangwu is it looks like he's just a kick returner. He hasn't been able to carve out any role as a running back on the team. And with the kickoff rules right now and kickers booming so many touchbacks, Nwangwu's value as a kickoff returner, and he's great at it, I think is very minimal. He only had 15 returns this year, and I know he missed a couple of games, but some games he didn't return a kickoff at all. They were all touchbacks. So I think that his roster spot he's going to be fighting for a roster spot. It's in jeopardy because
it takes a kicker kicking it to him to have a return, or kicking it relatively shallow. Most NFL teams now are opting for just blast it through the end zone.
Yeah.
If they've got any sort of returner on the opposite side, just blast it through the end zone.
And so I'd be surprised if he's back with the team next year unless he makes a huge leap in his ability to contribute in the running game. We know he's got speed for miles, but if you don't have a lot of the rest of the package, it doesn't do you much good at the NFL level. So Wong was there, Gaskin and McBride, I think are practice squad guys that'll stick around there, or maybe not, their bodies, but they're not going to be factors. What about Cam Akers? He is a restricted free agent, which means that the Vikings could, I believe, match any offer that he gets. But he's coming off I don't see any kind of a market for him. He's coming off, of course, his second Achilles tear. And I would expect there would be zero interest in Cam Akers on the market. And I think that the Vikings, if they want to bring him back, they can at a pretty cheap rate. Now, it was interesting. Will Ragatz from SI had a post about this week, and on Instagram, a Vikings fan kind of asked, "Would you bring Akers back?" And Akers responded, saying, "I think so." So I don't know what that. We don't know what the Vikings brass thinks about Akers.
Will Ragatz, formerly of SI?
Perhaps, yes, with all the layoffs that have happened at that storied publication. It's true. But
way to screw it up, Sports Illustrated. That's all I can say.
But Akers' stats while he was here, after he got traded from the Rams, were pretty, not great. I think we did see some good things from him, both in catching the ball and running it when he was in. He was behind Madison and didn't really get as many touches as we would have liked. But when he did get them, he didn't blow the doors off of us for sure. But I think that I think the Vikings would have interest bringing him back. He seems to like being in Minnesota. I think they would have interest in bringing him back for a look-see, see how he's recovering from the Achilles, and if he can help them in 2024 and help with the depth in the Vikings running back room. I think that you could see him back, and it's not going to cost very much. Now, free agency-wise, there are some running backs that are set to be free agents that would help. But you can cross Saquon Barkley off the list when he inevitably has his divorce with the Giants, because he's going to cost way more than the Vikings would be willing to pay at a devalued running back position these days anyway. He's going to sign somewhere, but it won't be here. The other guys, Austin Eckler, you're looking at Tony Pollard is set to be a free agent. Even lesser known guys like Devin Singletary and Zach Moss, who had a good year with the Colts this year. Those are all guys that potentially are set to be free agents. And if they don't get signed by their current team, they'd be a veteran with some track record who could help the Vikings a bit and maybe improve the running game. But again, even though the Vikings have more salary cap now than they've had in the previous couple of years, heading into free agency now, again, when you're talking about defense, we need to really address that in free agency in the draft. I see a lot of our resources going on that side of the ball. I don't see the Vikings at this stage really dipping into free agency to improve the running back situation. And then in the draft, well, okay, you're at 11 now. We've got 9 picks, which is more than we had last year, but we don't know if we trade up, we're going to lose some of that. We've got, again, lots of needs. You look at edge, you look at quarterback, interior offensive line, even maybe wide receiver, on the ball linebacker, corner. Those are all things that I'd like to see the Vikings address in the draft, and in some cases, particularly at quarterback and edge early in the draft. I really think if the Vikings, it's going to be addressing running back in the draft is going to be similar to last year. I think they got to scout the hell out of the running back position for college, see if they can find an undervalued guy that they can get in the 6th round, in the 7th round, or an undrafted rookie free agent, and see if you can strike gold like you did with Ivan Pace. I think that's where they're going to go. The Vikings need a difference maker in the running back room, but I don't think that we're getting one in free agency, one of the big names. And definitely don't think we're going to draft a running back in the 1st round. That ain't happening. It ain't happening in the 2nd round. And I don't see it happening until really day 3 and late in day 3.
Good. We need something, and it's going to see how it goes. But I agree with you. I think it's going to be addressed late because they're going to focus on defense. Other than the quarterback, they're going to focus on defense mainly in this draft and in the offseason, which needs focus too. But yes, we could use a better running back. And it all depends how the draft works its way out, how the running backs look in the draft. And I have not looked at them yet, so I can't Judge. I know everybody likes that tiny little dude from Michigan.
Yeah, Corum, Blake Corum.
Yeah, Corum. To me, he's too small. But there's
well,
but
I don't know if Drew is still here, but I'd love to get his take on it, Mr. Michigan. But I would agree with you. I think I haven't seen Corum a ton, but he seems like at the college level, he's been like a power back. Well, he ain't going to be able to do that at his size at the NFL level. So
5'8". No.
What's his strength going to be? Like what's his superpower at the NFL level? I'm not seeing it. There doesn't seem to be at the running back level at the college level this year. There's no Bijan Robinson or even Jahmyr Gibbs this year, like that everybody's touting as a guy who you could consider picking early in the draft. So it might not be that strong of a running back class either, which also will impact what the Vikings' decision in the draft, whether they're going to go after one or whether they're just going to try to take a flyer on signing a couple undrafted rookie free agents and see if they can, again, get a bit lucky there and again, lean on their scouting department to really find a couple of hidden gems.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And hopefully they will do just that. Well,
Anthony, trade or cut Madison. We already talked about the cutting is probably a non-starter. The trading, you can't trade a guy who has no value. And I would say Madison has no value.
Here, you can have him for a bag of sandwiches.
Yes.
Go to Arby's. Yes. We want this.
I like a roast beef on Swiss cheese, please.
For those asking about Harbaugh, from what I gather, very much Kwesi loves Harbaugh. Did at the time. It was that the ownership group, the one dude in there that has the hard-on for Harbaugh, that's trying to torpedo him up in Michigan and torpedoed him coming to Minnesota, which was the downfall of why he's not our coach. And then you could take, well, his personality, how close to his personality versus Zim's. But that Kwesi very much wanted Harbaugh on the team, and it was that close that we almost had Harbaugh on the team. So, but alas, it didn't happen. We got Kevin O'Connell instead. And so we're going to make Kevin, Mr. Make Everybody Happy, do his job, call plays well, and hopefully grow and become a better head coach in the process. Phew. That is it. Is there any last words you have, Darren?
I want to just quickly talk playoff picks.
Okay.
Maybe a little late
right now. So
you heard it here first. Dave, you give me, here's how it's going to go over the next couple of weeks. Baltimore's winning today. The 49ers are winning tonight. Lions are going to win tomorrow. And the Bills are going to win tomorrow. And it's going to end up being, heard it here first, going to be Bills 49ers in the Super Bowl. Bills are going to win and get out of we lost all the Super Bowls we played in club that they are in with the Vikings. That's my call. Bills Super Bowl champs.
Well, hey, I'm still going with the script that the Super Bowl logo is purple and red. That means San Francisco and Baltimore in the Super Bowl. We'll find out if it does. If Buffalo chokes again, that's going to cause problems in Buffalo. We'll find out. And then to watch that game, it's going to be a fun game to watch between them and the Chiefs. I think Buffalo should win, but we're going to see. And I'm rooting for the Texans. The Texans are a great story this year. So we're going to find out. And yes, I hope the Niners put a beat down on that team from Wisconsin as well, just because I can't stand that team from Wisconsin. But I'm a Vikings fan, and that's understandable.
Yeah, well, yeah. We need to.
Aaron, yes, we could be wrong. We've been wrong before. Just ask our wives, or in my case, my former one. God rest her soul.
As far as wrong, yeah. As far as wrong goes, there'd be no end to the amount of wrong takes you could. If you watch this show, there'd be a long, long list of wrong takes from me that you could cite.
Anybody that's in this business has them. So Anyways, with that, what do we say?
We say, SKOL Vikings, baby.
Enjoy your football, everybody, and SKOL Vikings! Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite podcast aggregator. Darren and Dave, thank you for watching this episode of Two Old Bloggers. We look forward to seeing you on every show on the new Vikings First and SKOL. You can find our podcasts as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Sports takes for the fan, from the fan. SKOL, everybody!